What was I going to say then? No. What was I going to say? Hello and welcome to another questionable review romance edition, where today we're going to be talking about two books by Katie Cotugno, namely How to Love and 99 Days. How to Love is actually one of my favourite books from when I was growing up, and one of my favourite romance novels of all time, I would say, not that there are many of them. 99 Days is a book that I've read, a couple of times, and then I decided that these two books had the same story, and so I just stopped reading the other one. I don't know how I came to this conclusion, because although they do have similarities and kind of explore similar themes, these books are very different, I have discovered upon rereading them both. So, we're going to start with How to Love because it's my favourite and it's the one I know the best. The essential plot is we follow Rena, who had a relationship with her childhood crush Sawyer and ended up becoming pregnant from this relationship. Sawyer skipped town before she could tell him, and as a result, she's had to face all of the stigma from the very Christian families on her own. And, he's been off on his adventures not knowing that he has a child. And then obviously Sawyer comes back and all this drama ensues. And it's really great. There are time jumps in this story. They focus on, the start of Sawyer and Rena's relationship and how that comes about. And the present timeline focuses on when Sawyer comes back and all of the drama that ensues there. The time jumps are really good. They pad out the storyline a little bit and they're really used to build tension. The tension in the past storyline is because you know what's coming and that Sawyer is going to leave and Rena's going to become pregnant. And in the after storyline, the tension comes from the fact that you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know whether these two are going to end up together in the end, even though you're really rooting for it. The time jump element really helps with this pre-established relationship, as well as the fact that I feel like Cotugno really captures that feeling of having really liked someone your whole life and them kind of being more myth and legend than actual person. But she sprinkles in enough of Sawyer's actual personality that we do fall for Sawyer in his own right, instead of him just being this vague boy-shaped thing on a page that we're supposed to fall in love with because we have been attracted to a male of the species before. We know how that feels. We can relate. The family elements and the drama going on with Rena's childhood friend Ali and also her current boyfriend Aaron is all utilised really well to add more to what could have been a really basic romance story. We like a story with a bit of substance, we've said this before, and the baby, as well as adding tension between her and her, as I said, very Christian family, feels like a character in her own right, as well as kind of being that narrative device for Rena's struggles while Sawyer is gone. I can't describe exactly why I like the relationship in this so much. I think that it has something to do with the fact that Sawyer is everything that you want in a love interest in a book like this. He's mysterious and he's kind of deep and he's a musician with shaggy dark hair and he's a troubled boy, essentially. And as the narrative goes on, we kind of realise that maybe what we have found out about Sawyer is just Rena's perception of him, and because she's so scared of, getting hurt by Sawyer, she hasn't really allowed herself to get to know him that well at all, or vice versa. And that's really interesting. I like the way that this was explored. This is kind of Somewhere I Turned Pretty done right, this childhood crush thing, because both of the characters actually had more going on underneath the surface than was originally portrayed to us, and that's great. We love to see it. Another little note I wanted to point out was that I just really like that in this story we're holding out on Rena, the girl, saying I love you. Sawyer said it way back, and we're waiting till the end of the book to hear Rena say it. And, it doesn't take much for me to feel like you've done something new and kind of flipped a trope on its head, and this is just a little bit of proof. It really doesn't take much. I don't really want to say a lot more because I do really like this book and I would recommend this to anyone. Just read it. No, it's really good. It is really good and I feel like it's really effective. And it does still capture that kind of dreamy summer romance feel while still having a deeper narrative going on. And the romance is still the central part of the story, so I'm still allowed to call it romance, which is great. I love that for me. I'm not going to say anything more about that. I'm going to move on to the next one because I can. 99 Days follows our protagonist, Molly, who has just moved back home from like her first year at college where she's been living away to a town where everyone hates her because her mother published a book detailing her daughter's exploits with her childhood boyfriend of many years and his brother. And, you know, she didn't exactly try to keep it a secret that these were the exploits of said daughter, Molly. So yeah, Molly isn't best pleased and, you know, she gets back to this town and everybody knows what she did and it's not very nice. And she runs into the brother, Gabe, and a romance kind of blossoms between the two of them. But then her, you know, original boyfriend, Patrick, also comes back and it turns out that Molly has made friends with Patrick's new girlfriend Tess and it's all a big mess and it's kind of great. I wasn't expecting to be as into this one as I was, but I was really involved and I really enjoyed this. I like Gabe, the brother, as a love interest. He's really easygoing and the romance was just really easy to read about. It wasn't really saccharine, but there were a lot of like sweet and down-to-earth moments that I really enjoyed. And it just goes to show that you don't have to go really over the top to write a good romance between two characters. Gabe is not without his flaws as well, so he's not just this cookie-cutter perfect guy who we're obviously supposed to really like and, you know, feel bad for in the end. When spoilers, you know, inevitably a romance also begins with Patrick. The way that it all turns out is that, you know, this stuff keeps happening between Molly and Patrick and she doesn't really know what's going on and so she doesn't want to tell Gabe and Patrick isn't telling Tess, so nobody really knows what's going on and in the end, you know, the two of them are discovered and Molly and Gabe decide to split up. And on the one hand, I am sad about this because they were a cute couple and I did like Gabe and I wanted to see a happy ending for him. But on the other hand, obviously it is more realistic for them to break up after Molly's kind of done him dirty like this. And, you know, maybe that is more his happy ending than ending up with a girl who could treat him in such a way. But on the third hand, which I will borrow from you if you don't mind, is I'm angry because fuck Patrick, because Patrick was the one who started this whole relationship in the first place and Molly tried to resist for so long and he just played with her emotions so badly and messed with her head that, like, I kind of just completely blame him. And I know that sounds bad and it takes two to tango and all that, but like every time Molly had an interaction with Patrick in this, I just couldn't help thinking how much of a manipulative arsehole he was the entire time. And it just really removed any kind of, you know, love triangle, who's she gonna end up with vibes for me, because Gabe was the obvious choice and he was just getting done completely dirty by Molly for a guy who clearly was doing it for, you know, to have it over his brother. And that's it, because, you know, she cheated with Gabe and so now Patrick wants to get back at Gabe now that they're together. I feel like in this book, the mum was really underutilised. I would have liked to see a lot more scenes of her and Molly rebuilding their relationship after Molly obviously feels like her mother has betrayed her trust by writing this book about her. The situation is kind of resolved by the end, but we don't really get to see any of that happening, and so the payoff isn't really there for us as a reader. That's kind of the only downside of the book, though. so I wouldn't put too much stock into it. And, you know, there is a lot of focus on other things. For example, Molly's friends. There's this, you know, whole thing with her childhood friend Imogen, who was the only one who was there for her after the book came out, and everybody was calling her a slut and shit. And after Molly just skipped town and left, she just kind of left Imogen to deal with all the fallout of being the only person who was there for the most hated person in town, which can't have been easy for Imogen. So she has to kind of make up with her. And then obviously Molly ends up becoming friends with Patrick's new girlfriend Tess, and so she screws Tess over as well by doing these things with Patrick, and that almost feels worse than her doing it to Gabe. I don't know. Maybe I have a warped sense of reality. I don't know. But it felt worse for me reading about that because Tess was this completely innocent party in all of this. Whereas, like, the three of them involved in the love triangle were all kind of terrible people at some point. The most heartbreaking part of the book for me was after Molly and Patrick are discovered, obviously she and Tess also have to have a breakup. And just the fact that Molly didn't have a lot of people who liked her anyway, and then one of the only people who did, even after everything she'd done to someone who Tess loved, and then to lose her again, oh my god, it's just so, hurt my heart. So yeah, the stressful reading experience of like Molly making all these really stupid decisions and us being able to see a mile off that it's all gonna come crashing down on her head, plus the not happy ending and the not being like a romance established at the end and Molly just goes off to college to do her own thing. Yeah, that kind of makes this not your typical romance. And even though I said I didn't enjoy this one as much as the other one, I do appreciate that it is a very different reading experience. It's almost reminiscent of like Wuthering Heights. Maybe not in like, oh, it's amazingly written and everything, but like just every decision that Molly makes, you're like, what are you doing, girl? What are you doing? So yeah, my final notes, I guess, romances with genuine B-plots rule, and I would like to read more of them, please. Also, I'll be adding Cotugno's 2 other books that I know of to my TBR, so probably you'll be hearing about those at some point as well, so we've all got that to look forward to. I think that I would probably recommend these books to, you know, anybody who likes romances, but even maybe people who don't. A lot of interesting things going on, and the characters are really well fleshed out. And not just the main 2 characters, but like the side characters and stuff. I think Cotugno really does put a lot of effort into her stories, and you can see that. So even if they're not exactly your thing, you can find elements in them that you will enjoy, and I think that shows the mark of a good writer, no? So this has been another questionable review, and, you know, I'll see you next time.